I want to switch gears here and talk about the 2024 election here in the United States. There are a lot of questions about Biden's age, and I think it's fair to say that his bear hug approach to Netanyahu has been something of a disaster for his support among younger voters. How do you grade Biden's presidency so far?
Good question. So up until October the 7th, I'd have said 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10, way exceeds my expectation. In fact, people always go after me because of a Guardian interview I did last year when I was on book tour, in which the headline was, he's the most impressive president of my lifetime. Of course, the second line was, compared to the other presidents, it's a very low bar. Donald Trump, George Bush Sr., Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. No, he did impress me. He has impressed me on the domestic scene. I think we've been very unjust to the Biden administration when it comes to the domestic scene. People in this country think we're in a recession or something. The economy's never been this good in decades. Record low unemployment, record growth, record small businesses opening. Inflation a tad up today, but in general under control now. He did a lot on the domestic front, and I was impressed by it, including progressive stuff, the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, record investment in fighting climate change, stuff he hasn't really gotten credit for. But I can't really grade him on just pre-October 7th. The reality is, people say, oh, you can't be a one-issue person. You can when the issue is genocide, or at least war crimes. And I think his complicity in Israel's genocide and war crimes and ethnic cleansing and mass killing and displacement and mass starvation of the Gazan people is unforgivable, inexcusable, reckless from a political point of view, given there's an election coming up. And I think you'd have to knock his grade down to like 2 or 3 out of 10 simply because of Gaza.
Do you think that he should drop out of the 2024 race?
Yes, but will he? No.
Will you vote for him?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. Donald Trump is the other candidate. I can tell you for sure I'm not voting for Donald Trump, and I would not cast any vote in any way or take any decision in relation to voting, e.g. non-voting, that helped Donald Trump. I think the priority has to be to defeat Donald Trump. And by the way, actually, let me rephrase my answer. I do want to recalculate the answer. You said, do I think you should drop out? I just want to redo that one. Not redo it, keep it in. All I'm saying is I just want to give some context. Context matters. Morally, he should drop out. Morally, I just think what has happened over the last 5 months is so bad, he should drop out. Politically, do I think he should drop out? Well, I'm worried about that because I'm not sure I buy this argument. There are a bunch of Democrats waiting in the wings who could all beat Trump. At the end of the day, Biden does have a good record. And you know what he does have that we just all erase? He's the only guy who's beaten Trump, right? He literally beat Donald Trump by several million votes in 2020, when people like me were very worried he wouldn't be able to do it. So I need to be a bit humble when it comes to Biden's electoral prospects and say I was wrong about how well he would do in 2020, so I shouldn't write him off now. So from a political electoral point of view, there is a good case for him being on the ballot. When I say he should drop out, that's more a kind of moral, that's me being morally outraged that he has allowed this to happen in Gaza and isn't doing anything about it even now.
So what do you think of voters, particularly Arab Americans that we've seen, who say that they will never vote for Biden now, no matter what?
So a lot of those people are hurting, Aidan. I know people in Dearborn, Michigan, who've lost not one, not two, not three, but 10, 20, 30 members of their family in Gaza. You can't go up to someone who's lost family members in Gaza to American-made weaponry delivered by the Biden administration to Israel, some would say in defiance of American law on foreign assistance and Leahy law, and say, you must vote for Biden.
Right, insist that they,
It's insane. Yeah. But they're not everyone, right? There are persuadables. I talked to people in Michigan and Georgia. I was in Atlanta recently with a Muslim crowd. There are persuadables who, if they got a ceasefire, might reconsider and say, all right, we've got a ceasefire. We will vote for Biden. They'd still be annoyed about it. The ceasefire's come 30,000 dead people too late. But at least if you can get a ceasefire in the coming days, a real one, not this fake pause, then there are persuadables. That's the whole point of the uncommitted campaign in places like Michigan and Minnesota and elsewhere. It's not because they say we'll never vote for Joe Biden. It's the opposite. They're saying, hear us out. We're Democrats. We voted for you in 2020. Like every Muslim I know voted for Biden in 2020. I don't tend to hang around. You'll be surprised to hear with Trump supporting Muslims. But every Democrat Muslim I know is now telling me I'm not voting for Biden. I've got immediate family members. I've got friends. I've got close relatives. All say, can't do it. Can't do it. Not while this is going on.
How big a threat do you think that is to his electoral prospects?
Pretty big. It's not
Pretty big.
insurmountable, but it's pretty big. In a place like Michigan, Hillary lost by what, 11,000 votes, 16,000? I can't remember. 10 to 15,000 votes she lost by in 2016. Biden won by 150,000 votes in 2020. In Georgia, he won by 11,000 votes. I remember that number because Donald Trump rang up Brad Raffensperger and said, find me 11,000 votes. 11,000 votes in Georgia. There's way more than 11,000 Arab Americans and Muslims. And by the way, let's not make this an Arab American Muslim issue. There's black pastors warning the New York Times in Georgia, black pastors saying, we've told our congregations, we can't defend this stuff. We've told the Biden administration, stop this war. There's young voters. There's people of color across the board. There's progressives. This is a much bigger issue than just, oh, it's a bunch of annoyed Arab Americans.
Right. What do you think a second Trump term would look like?
It's a great question. It's the most important question in our journalistic industry, in our media industry. And people like my friend Jonathan Swan and others have done great reporting in laying out what's going to come. But not enough people have read it. Not enough people are aware of it. People are busy watching TikToks of Joe Biden stumbling, and they don't realize what's coming down the track, which is fascism with a capital F. This is a president who's talked about wanting to be a dictator, who's talked about terminating the Constitution, who's quoting Adolf Hitler in terms of poisoning the blood and fighting vermin within. This is a president whose Heritage Foundation, the conservative pro-Trump foundation, has put out a report laying out in detail what they plan to do in terms of going after independent media, going after opposition forces. We have a former president and possible next president who says, Aidan, he's going to go after NBC and MSNBC and accusing them of treason, calls the media the enemy of the people. His guy Kash Patel says we're going after the media criminally and civilly. We have Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller making fascistic threats. Miller bragging that on day one they're going to build detention camps and start rounding up undocumented immigrants from across America, going door to door. It is a dystopian scene that awaits us, and what depresses me is our media is obsessed with trivial stories rather than the main story, the story. Donald Trump just said over the weekend he's going to pardon the January 6th insurrectionists on his first day in office. That should be the biggest story in America right now.